Great. Yeah, I just watched that documentary actually 3 days ago, and there's like, 200 million people, and it was telling the amazing, the power, work power over there. And it was really crowded. I didn't know that Nigeria has that population.
Yeah, I mean, some people say it's up to 230 million people.
Uh-huh.
And I
It's more
think
than that.
by 20, yeah, maybe 230 million. And that by 2050, we're going to be number 3 in the world in terms of population, just right behind
Wow.
China and India.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a lot of people. I always joke and tell people that one of the things we know how to do well in Nigeria is to make babies. So
So
yeah,
how are the woman population? It's like
so
it's close to each other with man and woman population numbers.
yeah, I think it's like 50 something to 40, maybe like 52 to 48. The last I checked. So yeah, it's like almost half and half. So yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Emre. Let's wait 2 more minutes. Should we start, Emre? Do you think? What do you think? Or should we wait a little bit more?
I would recommend waiting a few more minutes before we dive into the conversation. At the same time, instead of just waiting silently, we can potentially get some personal updates from our members. So I can kick us off. Like currently, I am very happy to be in Addis. I was away from Addis for a while. Like this has started a few days before um, GITEX Africa in Marrakesh. And since then, I have attended some international events. And by the end, I had a chance to visit my family. This was the first time I had maybe about a week with my parents after a while. It was really nice to enjoy some time with them, understand their mindset, circumstances in their lives, what they want, etc. And this felt really great. So I feel charged, and I'm really ready to great impact with the great teammates here in Addis Ababa. Thank you. And next, Ezgi, I nominate you. So
Say it again. Sorry.
I nominate you. Can you tell us about like what happened in your life recently?
Oh, actually, Los Angeles is slow. Maybe, other side of the world knows that, oh, Los Angeles is everything is so slow here. So I mostly work and then just go to the beach. I don't understand how everyone is so, like rich here, because most of the people I meet, they're so chill. Sometimes they don't, I don't even understand if they're working or not. So here is really different culture. So what I do mostly work, and then go to the beach and get some fresh air. That's it actually. So that's why I was telling Olufunto, I was watching a Nigerian document. So I keep watching documentaries about different countries, and I feel that how am I so away from the real human connection in the United States? Because all the other countries, Africa, Middle East, even Turkey, people are laughing, hugging each other, taking care of each other. So the loneliness here always, especially around this age, make me question things a lot. So I would never say I think so positive thing about United States beside money. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for the summary, Ezgi. Is there
Yeah.
anyone you would love to
Hello.
nominate? Or shall we go to Olufunto and
So we can
learn?
start actually if you want, Emre. I think
Oh,
we can.
7:05. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Mhm.
So I can do short intro for our students who don't know her. First of all, Olufunto, thank you so much for being here today. We met you at ADIS, which was of an African Diaspora Investment Symposium a few months ago, and we produced a short interview with you. And also thank you for that. So when I start editing your interview, so I realize within the 30 seconds that you're a powerhouse of a woman. You know, it's like you who isn't afraid of take on any challenge. At least this was what I felt. And you know, you see that energy instantly on the video, and it makes me think that okay, she's a giver. You know, because when we have like high level of empathy, we don't want others have the same issues, so constantly we try to pass that knowledge everywhere we found. So I think that's so valuable for young generation, not just Africa, maybe all around the world. Also, I believe it takes a lot of effort for a woman to find themselves, get that courage, and put themselves out there and start following their dreams. These are really important for like all around, like every young woman in the world. So we're so excited for our session today, to listen your journey and learn from it. Thank you so much for being in here. Just passing it to Emre, and I'm sure he has something to say about our session as well.
Thank you, Ezgi. And like you made a great summary about Olufunto. So I made many interviews in ADIS, and the best one, if I have to choose, because of the value that the conversation has for the audience, plus like the genuinity of the whole conversation. Like we talked many things in a short amount of time. And for that reason, Olufunto, to all the audience here, we are talking to someone who has gone through many obstacles in the business world as an African woman and who want to pass her experience to future founders and male and female. So this is, yes, Olufunto is a great accomplished person and everybody can learn from her. And I'm very happy to see some of our male members here because there is no gender in experience. And here we are all ears to save time in our journey. So if you are not an entrepreneur today, this doesn't mean that you cannot learn from entrepreneurial mindset. Even if you are going to become a software engineer, you will definitely benefit from entrepreneurial mindset because you will understand the business better. You are going to contribute more, and this is going to be appreciated in any organization. So please take this golden opportunity and pay attention to what you are going to hear from these great people. Thank you very much. And lastly, Ezgi, you have initiated this, like from the ideation to implementation, the Q&A series, empowering women in Africa. And it's not just empowering women, as I mentioned, this is also empowering men in Africa, giving them mindset, giving them energy and motivation. This is so thanks for initiating this.
Yes, we also need to empower them so they can empower the woman in many different industries as well. So also most of the male dominated areas, which we will talk soon. Thank you so much, Emre. So I'm passing the microphone our student representative Abigail, so you can introduce yourself and start asking our questions, Abby.
Okay, thank you, Ezgi. Hello, first, for those of you who don't know me, G4 member. So I'm very happy to be representing the students, and I'll be presenting their questions that we were able to get through a form. So first of all, again, I would like to thank you, Olufunto, for taking your time and like being here to educate us. So I'll begin with the first question. So to begin with, just share us a little bit about your background and like what inspired you to start your cycling company. And I think we could go from that.
Thank you so much, Eski. Thank you so much, Emery. Thank you, Abigail, and thank you everybody that is here. I hope you can hear me clearly. Can you all hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. So yeah, so my name is Funto, and I run a social enterprise out of Abuja, Nigeria called Chanja Datti. And for those who speak any kind of Hausa, it just means transforming waste. And I started Chanja Datti 9+ years ago. So a bit of background on my side. I grew up in Nigeria. I had already started university in Nigeria, but this was in the, not to date myself, but this was in the early 90s, early to mid 90s when I started college. And there was a lot of unrest in the country. I don't know if all of you see what's going on in Kenya and Nairobi right now. There's a lot of youth movement, a lot of unrest right now because of a finance bill that the government wants to pass. And so that was similar to what was going on when I was in college. So my university was closed for a long time. So, you know, I was supposed to have graduated probably in 90, I would have graduated from university in 98, but because of the closures, I had an uncle who was a professor at MIT, and he said, you know what? He came home one time and he told my dad, he was able to persuade my dad to allow me and my siblings to come to the US. And so that sort of started my journey in the US. So to cut the long story short, I attended Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts, where I got a degree in accounting, finance, and insurance. I started working right after college with GE, or General Electric. And I was with them for 12 years, where I was a VP before I moved back to Nigeria. And the reason why I moved back to Nigeria was because each time I came home to visit my parents, there were so many people who, number one, didn't have jobs or didn't have any kind of real income. And then I always tell people this, anybody who's met in Nigeria, we're very proud people. So these were people old enough to be my grandparents, right? And they were genuflecting for someone young, and when you ask the question, why are you doing all this? They'll say, my daughter or whatever, no job, no money. So when I started thinking about moving back to Nigeria, I was like, I need to create something where I can support people with jobs. I need to also, it has to have like a social mission attached to it. And so in Nigeria, you have to do a year of service, like you have to serve the government, right? After your university degree, regardless of how old you are, as long as you graduate before you're 30, you have to spend 1 year sort of serving the government. And so when I finally decided to move back to Nigeria, I had to do that 1 year of service. And I ended up working in the version of like Ministry of Energy in the US, right? And I was in charge of the portfolio for investor relations and donors and things like that. And a lot of companies wanted to come in and invest in our waste to energy. Okay, Nigeria is a place. I don't know how many of you were here when SG and myself were talking. Our population in Nigeria is 230+ million people right now. That's a lot of people. In terms of the waste that we generate, it's a lot of waste. We don't have enough power in Nigeria, unfortunately, right? And so a lot of people wanted to come in and do waste to energy. But they came in and they were like, you guys don't even sort your waste. And I don't know for how many people are from Africa here and how many people know in their countries whether waste is sorted or not. But in Nigeria, we don't really sort our waste. I mean, that has been an uphill battle. But in Nigeria, people just mix everything together. So I think for me, it was an aha moment. I was like, you know what? That is something that I can start to not only start to create jobs, but sensitize and raise awareness around people sorting their waste at source. And again, this is almost 20+ years of me living in the US, seeing that we have to separate our waste. And that was really the birth of Chanja Datti. I'm excited to say that, and I always tell people that Chanja Datti, we're all about 4 Ps, right? It's people, it's planet, it's profit, and it's partnerships, right? Those are the 4 Ps that we really believe in. And since that time, I've been able to create over 200 green jobs. So I have a full-time staff of like maybe 95 people now, and then give or take 100 plus women are part-time workers. And we do an average of, this year, we're probably going to do an average of maybe $20,000 in revenue every month. So, I mean, from a company that was just an idea to where we are today, and there's still room for growth. I think I'm happy with what we've done so far. But for me, that's not the only exciting part, because for me, I talked about, people, but I also talked about the planet, right? When people ask me in the morning, what gets you out of bed in the morning, really, it's the people side of things. So we've been able to come up with some very cool and innovative solutions to some of the problems that I've come across, right? We have something called Bottles for Books. So we're supporting children to go to school, and their parents are able to pay their fees with waste collected in the community. We're supporting waste pickers with personal protective equipment and training, health and safety training. We're, mopping up waste in our environment. These are all examples of things that we've been able to do just outside of running a business that, keeps the energy running, even when I am running a business on the African continent, which can be very, 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 very challenging. So that's my background. I'm excited to be here. People ask me all the time, why are you not back in the US? So why did you move back? And I always say, look, Africa is home. Africa is my continent. Africa birthed me, right? And there's a sense of responsibility that I need to give back. And so I could be earning, even when I moved back in 2012, I was already earning 6 figures, lower 6 figures, but I was already earning 6 figures then because I had reached the role of a vice president with GE. So people are always like, how did you make that move? How did you, was that not a scary move? Or, wow, you had to let all that go and, and I said, yes, because for me, it's about the bigger picture, really, at the end of the day. And so if I'm going to say anything at the end of this call, because I'm seeing a lot of my African people here, I'm hoping that all of you are thinking about at least coming back home to the continent to do something, please. Look, the continent needs each and every one of us, right? It's not just, the US is great, the US is fine, the US is awesome, but the continent needs us. I can't say it enough. The continent needs us. It needs the exposure we've gotten. It needs the expertise. It needs the network that we've gotten. It needs us. I can't say it enough. It needs us. So I know I've gone over the question more than what you asked me, Abigail, but please, so go ahead. So that's my background. Proud African woman, excited to be, scaling a social enterprise in Nigeria. And yeah, so that's my story.
Perfect. I have a little question here. I'm curious. Why do you think some of us feel that responsibility and connection to their homeland? Because that feeling, not all the people has this. So when you question yourself, why do you think that you have that deep connection to serve back?
Wow, that's a great question. I think for me, one of the, I'll say this, I've been very fortunate in my life, right? My parents are sort of well-to-do. If I needed to get to any place in the world today, and I needed to buy a plane ticket, I could potentially afford to do that, right? I might not fly first class, but I might be able to fly economy, right? I've never had to worry about what I'm going to eat tomorrow or the day after, right? It's always just been, so I come from a bit of a comfortable background. But I also come from a family of service, right? So my grandparents were, my grandfather on my mother's side was a Anglican priest. My grandmother was a school teacher. Both my parents are university professors. And it was just ingrained in me. My grandfather on my father's side was a health inspector. So I think public service has always just been ingrained in me to give back, right? But I also think that, for me, and I don't know about a lot of people, it's not good enough to just be the king in a small pond and just be doing well, right? So if you have cousins, like all my siblings are doing well, right? I come from, like I said, a comfortable background. But honestly, I have cousins, I have second cousins who are not doing so well, if you know what I mean, but they're still family, right? And so it can't just be about myself. And then, there are other people that I've met in my business that are really hardworking people. They really want the best, not just for themselves, but for their children and for, their family members. And it's a struggle, and I always tell people that I didn't have a choice. I wasn't given the choice to choose the family I was born into, if that makes sense. I really just logged out, if that makes sense, right? I logged out in the family that I was born to. I logged out in the exposure that I've gotten. And there's a reason why I have been provided with all this opportunity. It's to be able to give back. I don't care what anybody says. If it's like people talk about the Dead Sea, right? The Dead Sea, even though it gets water, but it doesn't give out water, right? After a while, it's now dead, right? We're all given the talents, the knowledge, the education, the exposure to be able to sort of support our communities, right? And the community is not just your immediate family. It's your your cousins in your countries or in your villages. It's your extended family. And so for me, roundabout way to answer that question is because I really truly feel that I was put on this earth to do more than just take care of myself. And the work that I'm doing sort of lends itself to that, but also because I'm well aware that I didn't have a choice in selecting the family and my opportunities. And so I do a lot of stuff that I do with a sense of gratitude, that I'm so grateful to God, to the higher power who allowed me to be able to do everything that I'm doing. And again, my plea to everybody who's listening, please, it can't be about you, right? It can't be about the great education you're getting. It can't be about the money you're making, right? It has to be more than that at the end of the day. There's some people who are not even asking for a hand out. They're asking for a hand up. And maybe you are the person who was put on this earth to help that person. So if you're just focusing on yourself and just me, and I need to make $1 billion, and I need to just the rat race, right? After a while, you'll see that it's quite meaningless, right? So you need to be able to give back. So hopefully, Esge, that I was able to answer your question.
Yes, thank you so much. What I understand here, so first thing, I think we all need to figure it out ourselves and why are we here on this earth and how we can use our skills to improve the world and help others. Thank you so much. Yes, go ahead, Abigail. Sorry, I was just curious.
It's okay. I think it goes well with A2SV's plan as well, because A2SV trains students to go to Silicon Valley, but it always reassures us to come back to our country, to Africa, to give back to our, because that's the end goal, to grow Africa. So I think that's a very good advice you gave, Olufunto. And I'll go to the second question. And the second question asked is, as a woman entrepreneur in a predominantly male-dominated industry, what were some of the biggest obstacles you encountered? I mean, I'm sure you encountered some obstacles, especially in African countries. It's more difficult. And how did you navigate through those difficulties?
Yeah. So great question again. Yes, the waste sector is definitely male dominated. Even yesterday, I had a meeting and the person I went to meet was like, wow, I'm so impressed. You're a woman in this space running a business. I spoke to somebody else today and they kept that refrain keeps on coming up again, that a woman in a male dominated field, right? But especially for the women that are listening to me, I'm like, look, if nobody gives us a chair to sit at the table, we just need to make that table for ourselves, right? We need to bring our table and bring our chair and sit down and take our space, right, at the table. It's tough, right? Especially in a place like you mentioned, in Africa, where it's very patriarchal. It takes a certain level of toughness, right, to be able to not really even care about what people are saying, but to sort of forge ahead. Some of the things that have allowed me to be able to move forward, like I said, is because I know it's not just about me. If it was just about me, then I would have run back to the US since, right? But because I think about the other people that would benefit from some of the struggles that I go through, it allows me to be able to do more. I've definitely faced a lot of prejudice sometimes, not too much now, as I've sort of built a name in the sector. But when I first started, there were a lot of people that were like, why are you here? Why are you not, working in a cushy office? Even my, can I be transparent with you guys? Even my parents, right? When I first moved back, they were like, we sent you abroad, you spent almost 20 years, and now you want to work in the waste sector. You're going to the dump sites and you're dealing with waste. They couldn't understand it, because they wanted me to go and work in, and I had gotten offers with some companies in Nigeria, and then people were like, oh, maybe why don't you just transfer and work with GE in Nigeria? GE had a big presence in Nigeria. So that was a possibility as well. So when I started, I said, no, I'm going to go and be an entrepreneur, and I'm going to be in the waste sector. People were just like, why? What are you doing? Are you crazy? But you know what? I'm proud that I've been able to prove them wrong over the last, few years now. People are like, oh, wow, you've done a lot. And when I see other women in the space, recyclers in the space who are women, I'm so excited, because usually they'll also, sometimes, I would say a lot of times, actually, they say, you know what, I saw you speak somewhere, or I saw something and you made me feel like it was possible. So there are a lot of women now in this space. I also faced, I'm not going to lie, I also faced some, when I said I worked in the ministry, right, I also faced some sexual harassment as well. But one of the tricks that I used around that, and I'm just going to be very transparent with everybody, was if I had meetings with some, men who I felt were not up and up, I would always go with a male colleague, right? I never went on meetings by myself, right? I would always go with a male colleague, so that if they wanted to say anything, they couldn't in front of the male colleague. So again, I came up with, tricks and hacks to make sure that, I didn't expose myself or put myself in a situation where I couldn't, to handle. But, at the end of the day, I think what really has helped me is just building my brand with integrity, allowing people to know what I stand for, and really outworking everybody as much as possible, right? So if I tell people I'm going to do this, people, a lot of my workers, a lot of people that come into contact with me, a lot of people that, have been referred to me, have always said, you know what, your reputation precedes you, right? And I know that, a lot of times, especially for us women, we always get the short end of the stick, because a lot of times people say, oh, she probably either slept her way up, or she paid some, or maybe her parents or her uncle got her that job. Especially a woman who's done well for herself, right? Unfortunately, that sort of is a story that people tell, or narrative that people tell. But I've wanted to sort of make sure that I broke those barriers, and that wasn't part of the narrative with me. So I've worked really hard. I've been very fair. Integrity has been my watchword. And I've been willing to open doors for other people, whether male or female. I've been willing to open doors for other people. And I think when people see the genuineness of where you're coming from, I think it allows them to put you in a separate category, right? And actually deal with you fairly. So if I was one of those women that just traded on her looks or on knowing somebody, I think my journey may have been a lot difficult, or more difficult than when people know that, oh, Chanja Datti. Now, when people hear Chanja Datti, they're like, Madam Chanja Datti, and they really hail me, because they know that, in fact, some people call me Iron Woman, right? Or they call me Margaret Thatcher. I don't know if that's is a plus or minus, but, they really just, there's that respect, right? So I think it's just doing all that, and just making sure that people see where you're coming from, and that you deal with integrity and with fairness to everybody that you work with. And I think it just gets easier. It gets easier for sure.
I have another question here. So even our students, they're gonna grow, and they're gonna get in the industry, and they will have to deal with that manpower. So my question is, just because the following your dream and dealing with, let's say, toxic type of personalities, that ever changed your woman character just to be in the race with them? And how did you understand and improve yourself on that area, just with dealing with the toxic personalities?
Yeah. I've never believed that I had to change my femininity or my womanhood to fit in. I'm telling you, I mean, right now you can see me with my really red lipstick, right? There are times when, and the red lipstick is not to look more beautiful or anything. It's just sometimes I feel that I need that pep, right? To give me that extra boost of confidence, right? And for me, it's my red lipstick, right? For some people, it might be like a bangle that they wear, or like the earrings that they wear that just give them that extra oomph, right? To just take space wherever you are. So especially for the women, I say, find what that is for you, and use it, right? But I would say that I've sort of leaned into that. I've never felt like I needed to be a man to do well. But I will say that, I think some of the characteristics of people like me, who I think are type A anyway, sort of lends itself to more people, like people like you're a strong woman, right? So I think running a business, right, you're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to be able to have grit and resilience, right? Because honestly, there are days where I always jokingly tell people that by the 15th of every month, I'm already thinking about salary for my staff, right? At the end of the month. So 2 weeks, I'm already like, okay, what do we do? What do we need to do to pay salaries, right? That is always going to be a constant thing in your mind. It might not be salaries. It might be for, buying of, raw materials, or how do you manage your inventory? But your brain has to constantly be working, right? Or has to constantly be moving. And entrepreneurship, and I don't want to scare anybody, but it could be a lonely journey, One of the ways that I've been able to sort of manage that is I have clusters of sister friends and guy friends and groups that I belong to, where sometimes all I need to do is vent, right? I vent, I get it off my chest, and then I go back to the drawing board and but it is very doable. It is when you see the impact you're making on lives, and I'll give you an example. I tell people that I'm an honorary grandma. You know why? Because 2 of my staff members met on the job, got married, and now have babies. So now I have grandbabies that, their parents would never have met if I didn't start this idea like 9 years ago. So I have like these 2 babies, right, that I feel are like my grandbaby. Just even seeing that, right, and that experience, I don't think you can buy it in the market. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Those are things that life experiences that nobody can really pay you, or you can pay for. So it's things like that I see every day. I see my women who are like, maybe they're widows, their husbands are dead, and now they're like, now they're hiring people to go to the farm for them, and they're working in my factory. I see women driving forklifts now in my factory, women who before were so timid and so scared, and now they're just, they're taking ownership of themselves and doing well. I have young guys who, come in as waste pickers for me, and then before I them on wife number 2, and I was like, what is going on, wife number 2? But they're doing well for themselves enough to be able to earn and take care of families, and that for me is just a big source of pride, right? To know that it was an idea that I had 9 years ago that has sort of sprouted, out enough to be able to support all these people and their dreams and aspirations and what they want to do. So, hopefully I answered the question. You just need to, resilience, grit, waking up every day, knowing that, it's not gonna be easy, but you know what, you're just gonna, put on your big boy or big girl panties and just make it work. Really believe that you are doing what you're supposed to do. And if it's only about money, I always tell people too that if it's only about money, if you're only in your field because of money, you're going to get burnt out. I don't care what anybody says. But if there's a bigger goal or bigger energy or source behind it, then it becomes, you're not doing it just because of the money, you're doing it because you're helping other people, impact in your community. It just gives you more bandwidth, right, to be able to do more, even when days are tough. In Nigeria, in the last year alone, I think our currency has devalued by maybe 80 or 90%. That's a lot of money, right? And you still have to run a business. Diesel costs have gone up. Food costs have gone up. Transportation costs have gone up. Our electricity, unfortunately, still 10 years after the fact, we still don't have enough megawatts in the country to take care of everybody. So my factory, one of my big factories, is run on diesel, right? But I still need to show up every day, even in the midst of all this, and show up not just for myself, but for my people, right? Because they're all looking up to me saying, oh, madam. And the day I show any sign of weakness is the day that people start getting scared and worried and things like that, right? So again, it's the resilience, it's the grit, it's the strength of, of self. It's knowing that you're, again, put on this earth for something bigger than yourself, and that you're working towards that goal, right? That's my answer.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, Abby, you can go ahead.
Okay, so from what I've heard, I could tell like it's a very hard thing to do, like being a CEO. How do you manage your time, like being a CEO and having your own person?
I couldn't hear anything.
I think you got cut off in some place.
Cut off, yeah.
I didn't hear your question.
Was I not audible? Am I audible now? Okay.
Can you ask
I was
it again?
saying, like, yeah, sure. I was saying, from what we've heard, we could tell like how busy you are and how hard it's being a CEO of a company, how it takes you a lot of time to think, and how do you manage that with your personal life, like with families and everything like that?
Yeah, so I think as an entrepreneur, you definitely have to have a good support system. It's a no-brainer, right? You need to have a support system that works for you. So that's number one. Number two, now when I first started, I didn't have enough manpower to delegate. But as you're growing with your business, I would also say delegate. The stuff that you don't really need to do, you shouldn't be doing, right? There's some critical things that are strategic that you have to be the person to run it. But there's some other just day-to-day running of things that, a junior staff or even a middle management staff can do that you need to delegate to other people. And then last but not the least, I'll say focus on I also tell people, even as a CEO who's trying to manage everything, also focus on your own core competencies or where you're good at, right? I've seen some businesses and startups die because maybe the CEO was not a CEO person per se. Maybe their title was, they had the idea, but maybe their talent was more CTO, right? Or maybe CMO. Then maybe they're the marketing person, or they can sell, ice to an Eskimo person, right? But because maybe sometimes ego comes into play and you say, oh no, I must be CEO by fire, by force, those startups don't do well, right? But if you sort of understand where your skills are tilted towards and you sort of go towards that, and you again surround yourself with like-minded people who can do the job well, then I say that has been one of the ways that I've sort of supported even my own self. And then I've never been afraid to, especially now, to take mental health days. Honestly, there are days where I feel overwhelmed with just the sheer amount of what needs to get done. And if I have to like clear my morning, and instead of having an 8 o'clock meeting in the morning, I just say, what, I need an extra hour to just get myself together. I don't feel bad about taking that extra hour. So I move the meeting from maybe 8 to 10, right? And I have an extra hour or 2 hours to just get myself situated. I think it's very, very critical to make sure that you take care of yourself, especially in this journey. So I think, again, like I said, it's making sure that you have the right support system, husband, parents, if you have kids, you'll need, support system to help with taking care of the kids sometimes that maybe the husband can't do by himself. You know, delegate as much as possible, especially as you're growing. Find people in your tribe who are experts in what they do. Like, I'm not a lawyer, right? So I pay a legal person now on retainership, but I pay him to deal with anything legal so that I don't have to worry about it. Similar with accounting, right? We have a bookkeeper, we have a finance person. Those are things. HR, we have an HR person. I don't have to worry now about, oh, should we hire this person? Go and talk to HR. I want to take a leave. Go and talk to HR. I want to take some days off. Go and talk to HR. So again, delegate as much as possible so that you're not inundated with, all the minutiae of what needs to get done. And that sort of frees you up to do more of the strategic stuff for sure.
Okay, now I'll continue with the other question they had. So when you're facing challenge leading your team, like even yourself, particularly in terms of motivation, and like when people are less motivated, or when you are less motivated, how do you handle them and yourself to get more motivated, and how do you like manage challenge that, like spiritually challenging things, how do you pass them motivation wise?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm grateful you mentioned spiritual things, because for me, my faith is Christian and it's a really big part of who I am. And I really lean into that for sure, right? Because it helps me to center myself. So that's one thing that I do. But the other thing that I also do, like I mentioned, mental health days. Honestly, there's days where maybe I worked late into the night, and I just need an extra hour in the morning, right? And maybe because of not enough sleep, I'm not feeling motivated. If I just get an extra hour of sleep, a lot of times I feel like I can bounce back and feel more pepped up, right? Like I said, with my staff, one of the things I'm learning, and then sorry, even for myself, one of the other things that I've learned to do now is I have a gratitude jar, if that makes sense. So anytime there's a small win, no matter how small it is, I write it down with the date and I put it in the jar. And then on days where I'm feeling like, oh, I'm in this rat big hole and it's never going to get better. Honestly, I found myself going back in and reading things, and I'm like, oh my God, I never thought we were going to see the end of that situation. And it panned out, right? So if that panned out, then this is going to work out, right? So it allows me to get motivated again. And so even with my staff, I see that a lot of times when they're not motivated, the one way that my staff really gets motivated, I'm going to be honest with you, is when everybody gets like a nice bonus, right? Everybody starts smiling. And once the money hits their pockets, everybody's excited, everybody's happy. So we try and do that a bit. We also try and celebrate the small wins, right? So if we have a small win, we'll say, okay, everybody go buy a bottle of Coke and just drink because we're excited, right? Everybody gets sort of motivated that way. And then, to also tap into what their motivations are, especially my middle management staff, it's to understand what their own goals and aspirations are and support them as much as possible. So I'll give an example. I have one of my strategy lead person who got an opportunity to go study in Israel for his master's, right? And he still wanted to retain his job, and because he really loves working with us and everything. And now he's doing us, he's in Israel right now studying, and he still has a job. He still gets paid his full salary, but he's coming back and he'll work with us, right? But once people see that opportunity, that it's not I have to leave my job or whatever, and that the company also supports them, there's that motivation to do more, to give more of their time and their energy. And but like I said, we when we do a project that earns us some money, we also are very generous with bonuses as well. And then when my staff needs time off, within reason, they also get time off to sort of deal with family issues. So again, all these things are things that sort of keep everybody motivated, right? Because they know that they can come back to the company and the company will sort of support them as needed.
Thank you. And I have also another question here. So we all have, different backgrounds while we're growing, different conditions, behaviors from family, from childhood. And sometimes you even go together, but it takes time to find yourself. So my question at early 20s, because that era you start understanding yourself, you want to do something, but sometimes because of the environmental condition, there is like a sound in our brains, oh, you can't do that, people will laugh at me, I'm not gonna make it, all the negative thoughts. So how did you deal with these thoughts, or have you ever deal with something like that when you were younger, that you can't good enough to achieve something?
Yeah, and I think the word you're looking for is, or the phrase is, imposter syndrome. And I think, I don't care who you are, right? I think everybody sort of goes through that. I'm sure if we had to interview the president of any country or the CEO of any big multinational, at the core of themselves, right? When maybe nobody's looking, I think there's sometimes they question themselves and like, am I really, what am I doing here? Or am I really doing the right thing? Or am I worthy to be here, right? So I don't think it's a situation or that ever goes away. But I think you just have to come up with hacks to help you overcome them. And I think one of those hacks is not listening to that voice, right? For me, I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of listening to podcasts. I listen to, sometimes I don't even have enough time to finish the podcast, but I might listen to even snippets of people that I really like on TikTok or Instagram, who just say something that makes a lot of sense to me. And I'm like, yes, and gives me that pump in my mind of, so I try and support myself with positive people, right? Who have really done well for themselves. And when I see people like that, I'm like, they don't have 5 heads, they don't have 10 heads, they only have 1 head. So regardless of their background, if they're able to achieve this, there has to be a hack to be able to achieve something similar or something close, or achieve whatever I'm trying to achieve. So again, for me, it's listening, reading, surrounding myself with positive people has been one of those hacks that sort of drowns out the voice of the negatives, right? That I think we all have. It's also reading biographies or stories about people that have been able to come out of situations where they never thought they would come out of. So it might be the background, it might be your family situation. And then I think lastly, it's just even just an inner self or an inner belief, right? That it's not just about you, but it's about other people. I'm telling you, when you sort of reframe that and you change the narrative and you're like, okay, it's not just about me anymore. I was put on this earth to help other people. I think even when you have doubts and everything, you just know that, okay, it's not, because it's not just about you and about the money I'm trying to make, but I'm helping person A, B, C, D. It just allows you to do more. And let me tell you, when down the line, when those people come back, because eventually they will come back in some way, shape, or form and say, you know what, I don't know if you remember me, but you helped me so date. And you're like, really? I don't even remember. I'm telling you, that gives you an extra, oh my God, I helped somebody and I wasn't even aware. And it gives you that extra oomph again to say, you know what, I'm helping people. Even when that voice in your mind is saying, oh, you're not, who are you? Who do you think you are? Whatever. You're like, no, but if I point to that person and I'm like, look, I helped that person. And there are other people that I'm helping that I may not know about. It just helps to change the narrative. So I think whenever we all go through that imposter syndrome, you need to drown out that voice by listening, reading, watching, imbibing positive, anything that, there's some women right now, let me tell you that they don't know me from Adam, right? They're not even Nigerian women. They're global entrepreneurs, right? But they're my mentors from afar because and when I read their backstory, I'm like, this man, I mean, she started, really, her background wasn't, and look at, she's now a billionaire. She's doing well. I'm like, if she can do it, then why would it stopping me, right? So it's having those kind of stories that you can sort of go back to and read on people and say, if that person can do it, so can I. And then it's also, I don't know if you've seen this viral thing that was going around a while back where, people were talking about someone like Colonel Sanders with KFC. He started his business at age 62, right? Who else? Vera Wang started her business in her 40s or something. They always talk about these people that didn't start their business as young people. So even when, so sometimes it might be ageism, right? You might be like, oh, I'm too old. Or if you're looking for people who are young, right? There's a lot of people who are young, right? From the Zuckerbergs of this world forward, right? Who are doing really well. The guys who started Stripe, right? Who are really doing well at breaking barriers. So there's a lot of examples. And all you need to do is to go back and say, if this person can do it, they don't have 5 heads, they don't have 10 heads. It means I can do it as well, right? And let that sort of help or sort of pump you up, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Yes, Abby. I think we have a few more questions, then we can jump on the students' questions after that too.
Okay. So since we've talked a lot about work, I was gonna ask you outside of work, what are your interests and hobbies? I got that you really loved reading from what you just said, but besides that, other hobbies and interests you have?
And I'm not even shy about this. I'm a huge fan of Judge Judy. How many of you watch Judge Judy? I love her. I love how frank she is. I love how straight to the point she is. I love how she skewers people when they are trying to misbehave or lie or whatever. So that's one of my guilty pleasures is watching Judge Judy. So, and it's such an escapist thing for me. The other thing is I love to travel. So, and my mode of traveling now that I think I get the most benefit from is going on cruises, right? So I've been to over maybe 40 countries, and I will usually do a cruise that takes me to different countries and, I get to learn about those countries in bite-sized pieces. So I don't have to spend 2 weeks in one country, but I can go from one country to the other, spend maybe 2 days, and then move on to the next country. So I see enough to keep me saying, oh, I want to go back now. No, oh my God, I'm so tired of that place. I never want to go back. So yeah, so those are 2 other things and then I love to cook as well. I love to cook. If I have like a captive audience who will eat my food, I feel like I can, put my food in it and cook a bit well. So I like to cook for people who are like hungry. Yeah. So those are 3 other things that I like to do.
That's a lot of hobbies. Very interesting. So lastly, from my side, I was going to ask you what advice you would give for young African women who aspire to maybe to start their own business or to grow abroad and work and then come back to their country and give back to their community. What advice would you have?
So I think the one big advice I would give is just do it. There'll never be a perfect time. Just do it. Like Nike, just do it. So if you want to do something, just do it. Even if you fail, you can fail forward. Do it and do it soon. Don't wait until all the scenarios are perfect. Just start it. And even if you fail, failure, for me, failure, even now at my age, failure is not a bad thing. Failure is just an expensive learning experience, right? That I learned from, I'll never do it again. So do it early, just do it and do it now. And then the second thing I would say is surround yourself with like-minded people who want to, who you're sort of working in the same direction. Because sometimes when you have divergent views and you partner with somebody who your views are not aligned, it could be the death of whatever great idea you have. So again, but if you're both working towards the same goal, especially as a woman, I would say go for it. Yeah, I think those are two things. Just do it, right? Don't ever, there's no, there's this statistic that I heard recently about, people, men and women, difference between men and women, even when it comes to applying for jobs, starting businesses. A man will, there'll be a job posting for a job, and a guy will see it, read it, and may just have 20% of the requirements, and he'll still apply. And when he interviews for, you think he was the best thing since sliced bread, right? A woman will have 80% of the requirements, of the qualifications, and will not apply because they feel like that 20% is such a game changer or like a deal breaker, which is not the case. So again, for all my sisters, younger sisters here who are listening, just do it. If you want to go back to the continent, find like-minded people who can, you don't necessarily have to move back 100% immediately, right? But you can start something small, start to support people, start to grow the dream, and then you can sort of grow that. But then at some point in time, you might want to go back and spend time there so that to expose yourself more. But just do it. Nike, just do it. I can't say it enough. Just do it. There'll never be a perfect time to make that move. So just do it. Just do it.
Thank you so much. So I would like to invite people, if you guys have any more questions that you would like to ask, I would like to leave the stage for people.
Yes, please feel free to ask anything, guys. I'm not sure if I can see the emojis here, but you can just turn on your microphone and ask any question. Yes, do we have any questions? No?
Olufunto, our teammates are shy at the beginning. And to break the ice,
no worries.
I can kick us off. Like, my question is about being shy. Did you ever have some time of your life that you were shy to ask questions, interact with people, ask for help or anything? Like, if the answer is no, if you were never in that state, what would you recommend? Like, what do people lose by being shy?
So, I'm an only girl. I have 3 brothers. So I've always had to take my place, right? To be heard, right? That makes sense, right? I've always had to be vocal or to just, so I've never been, nobody would ever call me shy for sure. No, that's not a word that you would use with me. But have I been in instances where maybe I was doing a presentation and I felt like I wasn't prepared or I was nervous about, talking to people a lot of times? So what do I do in those kind of situations? I make sure that I'm ready, I'm prepared, right? If I know that I'm going to, like if I'm going for an event, for example, I take time to do my pre-study and I look at who's going to attend those sessions, for example, and I'll read up about them, and I'll go on like LinkedIn page and see who it is that's going to be there, right? And, what school did they go to? Where have they worked, right? And I'll sort of just create questions around some of those information, high level information. I also people that Google is your best friend. So sometimes I'll be like, I'll Google and say what questions to ask in a networking event, right? To just help myself, right? So that's something that I would recommend. If you don't, know what questions to ask, just use Google to say, or ChatGPT or whatever, to come up with ideas of questions, And then I think last but not the least is ensuring that anywhere I go, I always go with the idea that I need to meet 10 new people. So otherwise it's a waste of my time and the time of the people who, invited me or my resources, if I don't meet 10 new people that I would at least add on LinkedIn and at least have a follow-up conversation. So for you have a magic number, right? If you have an event, networking event or whatever, have a magic number at the back of your mind that, okay, before I leave this place, I must talk to 5 people or 10 people, right? And we must exchange information. Once you have a goal, you will see that you want to meet that goal, and that will sort of push you forward. And then, I always say especially for university students, but even early on career or whatever stage you are, I encourage everybody to join a local Toastmasters. Find out the local Toastmasters close to you and join them, because even my presentation skills got a lot better after I joined Toastmasters when I was still in the US, because it forced you to come up with table topics that you had to present in front of people. And most times they would be clocking your ums and your Rs and your nervous tics and things like that. And they will, in a safe environment, they would teach you around it, or they would help you to be aware of it and to work around it, right? So I would say those are some of my just key points, right? Join local Toastmasters, do your research before you go for any networking or meetings with anybody, so that you can ask, good questions. And use ChatGPT or Google to ask about networking questions in case you don't know what to ask. I'll give you just a quick example of scenario. One of my very good friends, one of my best friends, she was interviewing for like a consulting job. This was like decades ago. And this, my friend, is a numbers person, but she's also a huge basketball fan. Huge, she's one of those people that knows the stats, knows the players, knows one of those women that just know and she's always watching games. And she went for this interview and she was able to ask a question. She had done her research with the partner she was interviewing with. And she just said, oh, I saw through your whatever, you made a whatever about basketball, that I'm also a huge whatever fan. And she said the guy never asked her any questions. The only thing they talked about was basketball from A to Z. And they were talking about players and the stats and she got the job. They didn't ask her any technical questions. She got the job. And it was a nice paying job. She got the job, right? Because she did her research on understanding that person liked basketball. It was a strength of hers because she loved basketball. She knew the players, she knew the stats, and she just leveraged the heck out of that relationship and that knowledge, right, to be able to get what she wanted. So that's just an example of leveraging or using your own information, right, to get whatever you want. So again, be prepared, be prepared, be prepared.
Thank you. Yes, Vanessa.
Okay, thank you, Olufunto, for being so real. My question is, how many career paths did you pass through to get to where you are today, if that's your final career path as well?
Ooh, that's a great question. How many career paths? So I think it was probably one. I mean, if I count my 12 years with G as one career path and working in corporate America, that was one, right? And then coming home to do that service year was an inflection point of decision of, do I work in corporate or do I work in government or do I start my own thing? So I think that was another path. And now that I'm an entrepreneur, I'm not sure that I could ever go back and do anything else, but continue to do what I'm doing. The one thing I would say as an entrepreneur is that I think I'm doing what I was put on this earth to do, which is to use business to help people. So that will never change in whatever I do, right? But the format or the platform to do that might change, right? As you sort of grow. So waste has been the medium that I've used to help people and to, my whole 4 Ps, people, profit, planet, partnerships, right? Waste has been my tool, right? But doesn't mean that tomorrow it couldn't be agricultural products or renewable energy or, but honestly, for me, for right now, where I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm really doing what I'm supposed to do on earth right now. So yeah, so I don't see myself changing, but I mean, a fantastic offer could come, an opportunity could come down the line where, if I know that I can help more people, I might not be able to say no, and I might take it. But for now, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a social entrepreneur. This is what I'm doing and I love it. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Last question is, it's a little bit personal. And so I'm going to ask, all these busy life, how did you meet your love of your life? And what kind of character did you choose for this busy business life? Or how do you get the support from your husband?
So I don't think this ever came up, but I'm actually not married.
Oh, sorry.
And I don't want
Oh,
to just no, that's fine. But I don't want to no, but the other thing is I had some near, I don't want to call it near misses, but um I've lived a very interesting life, but I'm not married at the moment. I'm still hoping to meet the love of
I
my
thought
life.
I remember you
But
have
I think
kids, right? That's why
no,
I
no, I don't
thought.
have kids.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Just call, just erase this part. Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
No, but I have nephews, I have godkids,
Okay.
godchildren, but I don't have any personal kids, right? I mean, look, I'm going to be 50 in 2 years, so I'm older than I may look, but I own it. I don't think that my personal life has really been impacted by my professional life to some degree. So what I mean by that is I got engaged twice. I think the person that I probably would have spent the rest of my life, unfortunately, had an accident and died a few years back. And I've just not been able to find the right person since then to settle down with. So the other thing that I would say is, especially for my women, the guys have it easier. For my women, if you know that this is something you want to do it early, do it sooner. Don't wait too much time, because I think the more successful you become, I think the more men are going to also, especially African men, are going to be like, she's doing better than I am. So am I, worthy of her or whatever? So again, it's something you have to just manage. But I have a lot of friends who are married, who are with children, and they've been able to again get the right support system. But even now, my parents are getting older, so I'm an aunt, I'm a sister, a daughter, and for me the focus right now is just taking care of my parents and just making sure that they're doing well. I'm still open to love. It hasn't found me yet. I'm hoping that when it finds me, it will be the right person. But yeah, and so people say, oh, maybe are you being too picky? I don't think so. I think it just hasn't happened. It just hasn't happened. And maybe because I'm too busy, who knows? But for my young sisters out there, if you know this is something you want, make sure you do it early. Don't do it too late, right? But yeah.
Yeah, my goal is actually was asking like some of the I observe women, so some of them when they have like a bad life in house, so it affects the business. So that was my question actually.
Mm,
How it affects, like some other partner effects on the business, and how did
yeah.
yeah. So, but thank you so much.
When I was
Yeah.
no worries. When I was in corporate America, one of the things that I saw that, again, maybe because I'm an African woman, I struggled a bit with it, was that a lot of my mentors who were doing really well, who were women CEOs of their divisions, a lot of times their husbands didn't work, or maybe they just were stay-at-home dads. To be honest, that really went against my own African upbringing. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just was so anti what I knew growing up that I struggled with that for a long time. But I eventually got over it. So I think as long as the two people understand their roles, and are comfortable with it and are happy with the choices that they've made, then everything is okay. It's going to be challenging with anything, right? You just have to make sure that this is really what you want to do, and that you are. I keep on going back to it. Like, I really believe that I'm doing what I was put on this earth to do. And so for me, that just, regardless of all the challenges and the, ups and downs, it just keeps me going regardless, right? So that fuels me every day.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, yes. Hello. Go ahead. Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce that
Okay.
in.
Hi. Can you
Hi,
hear me?
hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. My name is Akash. And my question for you is what changes would you like to see to support more women in leadership positions? What kinds of changes you see on the current?
Would I like to see?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I would like to see more allyship with our men folk, right? And so I'm excited that there are men on this this platform listening as well, because I think it takes two to tango, right? And so women need men, men need women. I don't think it's just a one size fits all and it's all men or all women. And so that allyship is very, very critical and very important. I also think that, you know, and I think things are changing, but maybe not as fast as we would want. More support for women to be able to dip in and dip out of the workforce, right? So, you know, at some point in time, you know, women will have to maybe leave the workforce to go have babies, get married and have babies. You know, it's unfortunate that historically that has not been supportive of women, right? Because you lose, you know, your, what's the word I'm thinking about? You lose your momentum when you dip out to go have a baby. Some companies, you know, historically would not hire women of a certain age because, and then historically people would ask questions like, you know, are you married? When are you planning to have babies? So they know whether to hire you or not. I think a lot of those things are changing now, especially in the US and even on the African country. I think people are sort of, you know, making that less of a barrier, right? So I would want to see that more enforced. And then I think last but not the least, I think across the continents, right, across the world, there's still a pay gap that is happening where men still earn more than women. And I'm not saying this because I'm a woman, so apologies to the men on the platform, but I just think that we women we're the best things in sliced bread. We work harder than men. We can multitask. We can do all these things. So in fact, we should be earning more than the men, right? No, you know what I mean? Like we should be earning more than the men and not the reverse. So I would like to see that gap closed. And then last but not the least, I think is the funding, right? I think there's some very atrocious numbers around global funding. Maybe only 2% goes to female-led businesses. And that 2% of funding for businesses go to women, 2%. I would see that number, I would love to see that number go up to like 50% or 70%. Because I think we women, again, no disrespect to the men, but we women always think not just about ourselves, we're thinking about the community, we're thinking about people outside of ourselves. Meanwhile, I'll give you a quick story. A guy got 50,000 naira. You know, people were just aghast at this. A guy got 50,000 naira, and guess what he did with the 50,000 naira additional bonus, right? He married a second wife. He had a wife with 3 kids. He didn't think about the wife with 3 kids. He married a second wife. If it was a woman that got that 50,000, she'd be thinking about, oh, my children, maybe pay school fees. What do we, let me buy 2 bags of rice in the house so we can have food for the next 3 months. You know how we women are, right? We're thinking about the family, the community, but the man he went out to marry a second wife. So what I'm saying is, you know, we set up businesses that help other people and not just ourselves, right? That's just a common factor, right? And so the lending gap also needs to be closed. So if I had a magic wand and I could make things sort of equal or aligned, I would say lending to women, I would make it equal. Pay gap, I would make it equal or even pay us more. And then just allow women's momentum not to be stalled because they step out to have babies and then come back into the workforce. That they actually are able to do that because that's part of what the world needs and expects, and they don't have to pay a penalty for that. I hope I answered your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys?
There are some questions on the comment section, so I'm gonna read them, I think. One question says, your communication skill is very impressive, the way you express your thoughts. Could you share us how you developed it?
Sure. So I mentioned Toastmasters earlier on, great resource, but I'm also super passionate about what I'm talking about, right? This is something that I really, really like. And so I think what you're hearing is the passion behind even the work that I do. And I think that is very, what's the word I'm thinking about? It's very engaging. So people are like, oh, let me listen to what she has to say because it seems like she's passionate about it. So I think what you're hearing is the passion, right? And so if you can really find what you're passionate about and you start communicating around it, I think people will sort of get engaged and it will come across that way. But Toastmasters has been very useful for me, especially my early years, in just getting comfortable with being able to talk to people and not feeling like, oh my God, what am I saying? I don't really rethink what I love what I do. I'm passionate about it, and I'm excited to be here to share that with you, and it comes across. So, but thank you for that compliment. Thank you so much.
So do we have any other question on the comments, Abby?
I think there's one more question. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your company's name, but I'm gonna try. It says, is Datti open to collaborating with other organizations to expand its reach and impact?
We are open, so please, anybody who's interested, yes, let's make a cleaner Africa for sure. We're very open, very, very open to that. It's one of the things that we want to do in the next 18 months. So please, anybody who's interested, just SG has my number, my information. Please share. I'm very open to having that conversation with people. Everywhere I go and I talk about this, people are always like, oh, my country is so dirty. My this is so this, my this is so that. People don't have jobs. This is a way to create jobs, but make the countries and the continent cleaner. So yes, please, let's have that conversation.
And I think the last question says, have you ever been to Ethiopia? Because I think most of us here are from Ethiopia or are here in Ethiopia. So have you ever been to Ethiopia? I think is the last question.
I have been, but it was really, I fly Ethiopia Airways a lot. So kudos to you guys, because your airline is really good. It's one of the best in Africa, if not the best in Africa. So I had a layover, but have I been there to just vacation or anything? No. So it's still something I need to do, but I've been there for maybe like a day or two, but it was a layover really than anything else. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely looking forward to it.
So we will have a hackathon grand finale, and we'd like to see you there. And it's going to be a really great event. Yes. And also,
I would
we will
love to be there.
all the information. Maybe you have time and come to the hackathon grand finale as our honor guest. Who knows?
I would love that. I would love that. Just let me know, and I'll love to be there.
Thank you so much for today, Olufunto. It was great talking to you, learning from you. Emre, do you want to say something before we call off?
Well, thanks for your time, Olufunto. I hope our audience enjoyed your conversation, and I hope we had the opportunity to learn from your life experience. Like for young people, it can save sometimes years. I wish I had the chance to have a conversation with my 20-year-old version, 25-year-old version. But through such kind of events, I believe we don't do this for ourselves, but we do this for our younger versions. So thanks for being with us. Thanks for setting such a great example for women. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. This was awesome. Please use me anytime you want to for this kind of things. It gets me re-energized as well. And please, anybody that needs any questions, any help on the, in Africa, on the continent, I have a bit of a network. I can definitely leverage that. So please just reach out. No man is an island. It takes a village. So let's all help each other. Let's help the continent. That for me is always back of my mind, right? So again, thank you so much for the platform. And I look forward to seeing all of you at the top, back in Africa, running huge businesses, running the show, doing great stuff, right? I'm expecting, that's my expectation, right? So yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Good night.